This week in the news, we figure out which one of these things corresponds to which one of these things. Go ahead and pause the video, make your predictions, and you'll figure out later if you're right. Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include a storm of exciting Diablo news, Riot's new anti-cheat system in Valorant stopping people from logging into their computers, some more Doom Eternal developer drama, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the video description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Crunchyroll. So anime is something that I've gotten progressively into over time. It helps that I'm engaged to basically an anime expert. And more recently, things like Attack on Titan and Death Note are anime I found myself rewatching multiple times. Monsters and intrigue and death. Lots of death. And Crunchyroll is the world's biggest anime site with the most comprehensive library of anime titles. With Crunchyroll Premium, you unlock access to unlimited anime, manga, and drama titles in ad-free 1080p HD, all professionally subtitled. None of those laughter-inducing mistranslations. And you get the newest episodes hitting as soon as 1 hour after air in Japan via simulcast. Crunchyroll is also really engaged with the anime community, and they give a portion of their revenue to support the industry. They even produce their own original anime, like Tower of God, which I would recommend to anyone who's a fan of Sword Art Online. And dare I say it, I think I'm enjoying Tower of God even more. So go to crunchyroll.com/Riker or click the link in the description below and get started on your 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium. That's crunchyroll.com/RHYKKER. Also, leave a comment below and tell me what titles I should be checking out on Crunchyroll. In our first quick story, a new trailer has released for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, a game that is a shoo-in for winning Longest Title of the Year award. The trailer is really creepy. I feel there's a lot of inspiration from that one Reservoir Dogs scene. And overall, I think it's a really good trailer. Now, don't go into it expecting AAA game graphics. This is a AA game, but I do encourage you folks to check it out. On to our next story, a follow-up on the Doom Eternal drama. Last week, we reported that Mick Gordon, the composer of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal's iconic soundtracks, has made some comments distancing himself from the recently released soundtrack to Doom Eternal. When confronted with a quality issue about certain songs on the soundtrack, Gordon stated that he didn't work on those songs, thus shifting the blame to developer id, and in other comments suggesting that he would not be working with id again in the future. Altogether, this painted a picture of Mick Gordon being somehow upset at id and blaming them for the poor results of the soundtrack. Well, since then, executive producer of Doom Eternal Marty Stratton has released a open letter to the community. In this lengthy letter, he gives a very detailed account of exactly what transpired between Mick Gordon and id. And according to his side of the story, it seems as though Mick Gordon was not meeting deadlines, despite receiving a 6-week extension. As id became increasingly concerned about Gordon not being able to meet the deadline, as a backup plan, they had their own internal lead audio engineer start mixing songs for the soundtrack. Now, internally at id, the only files they had access to were the ones that Mick had given them for use in-game. Whereas Mick Gordon himself will be working with original files, able to master the soundtrack himself at a much higher level of quality. In short, we can say that id did the best with the material they had available to them. And according to Stratton, both parties, Mick Gordon and id, agreed that ultimately, Gordon would deliver as many tracks as possible, and id would supply the rest. They would basically fill in the blanks. Stratton further expressed that he was surprised to see Gordon's comments about not working together in the future because no such conversation had transpired between the two parties. But Stratton then went ahead and made it official and stated that they will not be working with Gordon on the DLC for Doom Eternal that they have planned. It just goes to show there's always two sides to every story. And when you only hear one side, it's very easy to paint a picture of a villain and a hero. But when you hear both sides, things become a lot more gray. On to our next story, Riot's new anti-cheat Vanguard, which they've been using in their newly released or pre-release game Valorant, has turned out to be just as bad as people thought it would be. We previously reported that Valorant uses this new, very aggressive anti-cheat system that effectively has more authority over your own computer than you yourself have. It runs all the time, not just when the game is running, and when you turn on your computer, it's already running before you've even logged in. In that video, we expressed concerns about this. We expressed why this is a bad idea, and as always, there's a defender saying, oh, how is this different from any other anti-cheat? It is different because other aggressive anti-cheats at least only run when the game is running. Now, we've had reports of people having their computer soft-bricked because of this Vanguard anti-cheat. People have allegedly tried to boot up their computers, and guess what? Vanguard is stopping certain things from booting up. Certain things like, oh, your mouse and keyboard, so you're stuck at a login screen and can't do anything. Things like temperature monitoring and fan control software. So we've had reports of people who normally use these softwares to alter their fan temperatures realize that their computer is running dangerously hot and they can't change things. We have reports of external audio drivers being stopped, such that VR headsets get no audio. RGB lighting controls are being stopped. It's not that big of a deal, but still, if you're someone who is invested in the setup and you want to have your fancy lights changing, I mean, that's unpleasant. We even have reports of Wi-Fi drivers being disabled, stopping you from connecting to the internet, which, let's face it, that's probably the best anti-cheat possible. Can't cheat if you can't even connect to the game server. Oh, except guess what? There's still cheaters in this game. Despite all of this, there's still cheaters in this game. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to give a program so much control over your computer that it is preventing people from using their computers in a normal way, that is able to shut down apps and software, stop them from booting without any say-so from the end user? All to have a game that still has cheaters anyway. Now, Riot has been working on and releasing patches to address these issues, and yes, the game is not yet released, so they still have the capacity to improve the system, but really, honestly, they should just be shamed into not letting this thing have so much control over your system. Riot has the opportunity before this game releases to walk this nonsense back and release a more reasonable anti-cheat that is not nearly as invasive. Let's hope Riot does the right thing. On to some last Epoch news. The devs have released a preview of Chapter 8 of their upcoming action RPG. I'll drop a link to that in the video description below so you can check out the screenshots for yourself, but this is certainly a game that I am looking forward to. I reiterate, I've said this before, I'll say it again, Last Epoch has the most interesting active skill system I've seen in any action RPG yet. Onto some Grim Dawn news. In an interview with Segment Next, the developers of Grim Dawn have expressed that while production on Grim Dawn 2 has not yet begun, they're taking time to think about what they want to do with a sequel. Now, one of the great things about Grim Dawn is its modding scene, and lately on my Twitch stream, follow me on Twitch, by the way. Lately on my Twitch stream, I've been playing a Grim Dawn mod that is effectively a Diablo 2 remake inside Grim Dawn. It's very cool. I encourage you to check it out for yourself, either pass by my stream or link in the video description to download. And that takes us into our Activision Blizzard news and subsequently Diablo news. Activision Blizzard had its Q1 2020 earnings call with investors. This is an opportunity for them to talk about profits, as well as give an idea of what to expect in the future that may impact these share prices. In it, we get some news about Diablo Immortal. On the call, the chief operating officer stated, quote, "And finally, Diablo Immortal is shaping up very well. We remain on track to begin regional testing for the game in the middle of the year." And the chief financial officer further stated, quote, "Turning to the second half of the year, we continue to expect to begin regional play testing for Diablo Immortal and certain other mobile titles." In a separate interview with CNN Business, CEO Bobby Kotick stated, quote, "I think in the environment that we're in today, where you have high levels of unemployment and economic uncertainty, having free games on phones is going to probably be a big way to grow the audience." I still have people come by my Twitch streams and ask, "Riker, do you think that Diablo Immortal is cancelled?" It's not cancelled. Mobile is a strong part of Activision Blizzard's strategy now. They're not going to cancel it. If they're staying quiet about it, it's not because it's cancelled, it's because anytime they say stuff, all the haters come out of the woodworks. Now leading into other Diablo news, we actually have some Diablo 4 news. A vendor build for a Project Fenris has appeared on Blizzard's CDNs. That will be their content delivery networks. Now this build is encrypted and cannot be data mined, but we know this must refer to Diablo 4 because it had been leaked years ago that Fenris is Diablo 4's internal codename, and this was corroborated by Blizzard accidentally at BlizzCon 2019 when all the files that they had made available for download for Diablo 4 had the name Fenris in it instead of Diablo 4, which they were only able to change at a point at which people had already noticed it. Now, while this has not been confirmed by Blizzard, it is believed that vendor builds are used for distribution to external partners. Now, historically, when you would see vendor builds hit the CDN, it typically meant an alpha was just around the corner, for instance. It generally signaled a state of development that feels a lot further along than where I imagine Diablo 4 currently is. Now, my suspicion is it possible that this somehow has to do with the whole shift to working from home? Some argue that if that is the case, if this was just a way to distribute the current build of the game to Blizzard employees working from home, that it wouldn't be labeled as a vendor build, which again is used for external partners, but these are unusual times, so could it be that exceptions are being made here? On to our next story, Diablo 2 Remastered, or as it's allegedly being called, Diablo 2 Resurrected. Now, the editor-in-chief at actugaming.net, Julian Blairy, states that according to anonymous sources, there is a Diablo 2 remaster coming. It'll be called Diablo 2 Resurrected, and it will be releasing in the final quarter of 2020, but could potentially be delayed due to the ongoing global health crisis. Now, of course, the first thing you should do whenever a big story breaks that involves leaks is question the source. In this case, ActuGaming is not a website I'm familiar with. I'm not certain whether they have a record of legitimate leaks. I'm not certain whether this Julian Blairy has a reputation of reliable leaks. I tried to look into it. I could not find much about him or his outlet. The best I can find is that shortly before BlizzCon 2019, he leaked Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, and World of Warcraft Shadowlands. So I reached out to reputable gaming journalist Jason Schreier to get his opinion, and he stated, quote, "I can't confirm it at the moment, but the existence of a Diablo 2 remaster is definitely something I've heard in the past." Now, according to ActuGaming, we also know that it is the studio Vicarious Visions that is working on Diablo 2 Resurrected, and they've allegedly been working on it since the release of the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, which released in 2017 on PS4 and hit other platforms in 2018. We know that the Crash Bandicoot trilogy was a compilation of remasters published by Activision, and that Vicarious Visions was acquired by Activision back in 2005. So these are some extra details that helps lend some credence to this leak. And while of course we have to take it with a grain of salt, I am inclined to believe it. This corroborates rumors and leaks we've previously heard. The same leak that revealed Diablo 4 would be presented at BlizzCon 2019 also stated that a Diablo 2 remaster would be presented, and so we were confused when no Diablo 2 remaster ended up being presented at BlizzCon 2019, but the reason for that could be that they were pushing it back to BlizzCon 2020 to have some big Diablo news at BlizzCon 2020, and because 2020 is the 20th anniversary of Diablo 2. Now, Julian Blairy also stated that Blizzard is allegedly very well aware of the backlash of Warcraft 3 Reforged, and believes that their error there was in their communication around the title, that they presented it too much as a remake rather than just a remaster, and they allegedly will not make that mistake again. Now, if we do a little bit more digging, some other dates start to line up nicely. In 2016, Diablo 2 received a sudden patch after years of inactivity, and along with the patch, a message was posted to the community. Quote, "There is still a large Diablo 2 community around the world, and we thank you for continuing to play and slay with us. This journey starts by making Diablo 2 run on modern platforms, but it does not end there. See you in Sanctuary, adventurers." Now, that message came in 2016, and since then, There's been nothing more to this journey that wasn't supposed to end there. So they were hinting at a remaster as of then. Now, the creators of the Diablo franchise, including David Brevik, have spoken pretty adamantly about how difficult it would be, if nigh impossible, to remaster Diablo 2, given that there are so many assets to remaster and that a lot of the original files were lost, so that you'd have to be effectively remaking a whole lot of the game. Well, that could perhaps explain why it's taken 3 years to make a remaster. I'll reiterate that I believe this leak to be true, but I cannot say with 100% certainty that it is. What I am 100% certain of, though, is that for years, Blizzard has had interest in remastering Diablo 2. And speaking of Diablo 2 remasters, we've gotten a new update on Beta 3 of The Curse of Tristram, which is a Diablo 2 remake inside StarCraft 2. Link to that in the video description. And lastly, Diablo has received a new community manager. Adam Fletcher will be leading community development for the Diablo franchise, and he wasted no time stating that they're looking to hire 2 community managers for Diablo. And in late-breaking news, the Diablo Twitter account stated that the team is aiming for the end of June for the next quarterly update for Diablo 4. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video, in which we cover the thoughts of the former Blizzard boss Mike Morhaime on what's happened to World of Warcraft. Also, be sure to get your 14 days of Crunchyroll Premium at crunchyroll.com/RHYKKER. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to our sponsor and supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.